This is slide 7 of our 70s unit, Economic Malaise. Now, first of all, malaise just means a general depression, sadness, you don't care anymore. It's just a down, depressing, dark time. And that was the economy of the 70s. All three presidents, Nixon, Ford, and Carter, will all have to deal with a terrible economy. It is so bad it gets its own name. It's called stagflation. Right? That's the combination of a stagnant economy that's not going anywhere and inflation. Right? Now, this is a rare thing. Stagflation, in theory, should not be possible. It's not supposed to happen. Unemployment and inflation should not be able to go up at the same time. Okay? Inflation, think prices. Okay? If unemployment is high, prices usually go down because people don't have money to spend, so prices go down. If unemployment is low and people have lots of money, prices go up. So those two should be opposites. But in the 70s, they both happen at the same time. Unemployment is skyrocketing and prices are going up. Economists will tell you those two things can't happen at the same time, but they did. So they created a word to describe it, stagflation. Now, there are four sort of main causes of stagflation. Okay? First of all, number one, declining investment in new machinery. The U.S. stopped building new machinery. Okay, declining investment in new machinery. I'll say each of them twice there for you. We had led the world in producing goods in the 50s and the 60s. Nobody even came close to challenging us. So we stopped improving. We stopped getting better. Nobody was pushing us. And when you stop doing that, when you stop building new things and new technology, the rest of the world catches up, and they did. So we were stuck with old, outdated, outmoded ways of building things. Okay? So declining investment in new machinery. We stuck with old stuff we had, and it started falling apart. Number two, okay, new government-imposed safety and health regulations. Okay? New government-imposed safety and health regulations. The government started getting involved in factories to protect people, to make them safe while at work. The government got involved with protecting the environment. Companies couldn't just pump crap into the air and water anymore. And that means they have to spend money improving their factories. And because the factories are spending money and owners are spending money making their factories safer and better, doesn't mean they're going to take a loss. It means they're going to pass that price increase on to consumers. Okay? Number three, Vietnam was draining money that we needed to improve education. Schools were suffering. Colleges were suffering. Because we were spending money in Vietnam rather than on education here. Right? The best, brightest minds weren't going to private businesses. They were going to the military, to defense factories and such. So Vietnam was hurting our education, both the schools and what was coming out of it. Okay? And number four, the last one, is simply inflation. Okay? Welfare puts money into people's hands, but we're not building things for the people to buy. Okay? Welfare puts money into people's hands without adding to the supply of goods that they can buy. So people have money, but there's nothing to buy. Okay? So all those things kind of come together in this perfect storm. Okay? Now, Nixon really is gone by the time the worst of this hits. He has to deal with some of it, but not the worst of it. So let's talk about what Ford and Carter do here. Ford's solution fails miserably. It's a plan called WIN. And here you see the little the button there. WIN. It stands for Whip Inflation Now. We can all get together and whip inflation if we just work together. Ford, his solution is to ask Americans to voluntarily control their spending, their wages, and the price increases. He's asking businessmen, lower your prices. Don't charge so much. Don't make so much profit. He's asking Americans, don't take pay raises. You know, businesses can't afford it. If businesses are losing money on salary, they're going to jack up prices. Asking Americans not to take a pay raise or not to take a job at all, or asking owners to not charge higher prices is simply not going to happen. It's a terrible solution. When Ford fails, our next president, Jimmy Carter, Carter's solution is going to be about as bad. Carter is going to give what's come to be known as the Malaise Speech. And again, remember, malaise means depression, darkness, sadness. You just don't care anymore. You give up. Right? Carter is an interesting president. He had been a governor of Georgia. Before that, he was a peanut farmer, owned a peanut farm in Georgia, became governor, and then becomes president. Carter is a good, decent, honest Christian man. And following Nixon and the supposed pardoning by Ford, the country was ready for just good, honest decency, and that's Carter. Okay? But Carter's not a great politician. Okay? Carter's solution to the horrible economy that he inherits is to go on television and give a speech in which he tells Americans they are bad people because they have fallen into this moral and spiritual crisis, that we're bad because we've become too materialistic, too greedy, and if we just weren't so dependent on things, the economy wouldn't be so bad. Right? And to make himself appear more homey, up here in the top right corner, you see this picture. I took that picture at the Carter Presidential Museum in Atlanta. He goes on TV wearing this sweater, and instead of a suit and tie and looking all fancy, he figures maybe they'll listen to me more. Maybe they'll believe me if I look like one of them. Just a good, honest, average, everyday guy. So he puts on this sweater, and he sits down in front of a fireplace, and he gives a speech telling Americans they're too materialistic and too greedy, and the economy would be better if they would just stop depending on their money and their things. That did not go over well, as you can imagine. Imagine you're Carter's advisors, and he comes to you and says, hey, I got an idea how to fix this thing. I'm going to go on TV and tell Americans they're too materialistic and too greedy, and this is all their fault. They had to be like, oh, dear God, Mr. President, please, no. Good. I'm glad we're all in agreement. I'm going to do that. And then he does. He goes on TV and gives this speech. It is horribly received. It goes over about as well as you would expect it would. So the economy will be a weight dragging both Ford and Carter down throughout their presidencies. Okay? All right. One last topic here for this slide. Let's talk about the energy crisis. And this is a very big one. Very big problem. Right? If you will recall, back in the 50s, OPEC was formed, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. These are all the countries that oil is their main export, right? Most of them in the Middle East. Okay? OPEC decides that they're about sick and tired of the United States supporting Israel every time there is an Arab and Israeli war. So OPEC decides they are going to slap an embargo, meaning they're going to stop selling gas or oil to the United States and other Western European countries, France, Great Britain in particular. But we'll worry about the U.S. here. They're going to stop selling oil to the United States. The United States goes into a panic. Everybody, oh my God, we're going to run out of energy, we're going to run out of gasoline, we're going to run out of everything, and then we do. As you see here down at the bottom, the picture, gas shortage, sales limited to 10 gallons of gas per customer. Cars would line up at gas stations to get gas, fill up their cars, fill up gas cans, anything that could carry gas, they would fill it up. Worried that eventually there's not going to be any more gas. And eventually there's not. We run out of gasoline. We had to start rationing gas. They would ration gas not only in the amount, but also in when you could buy it. They would have odd days and even days, and it depended on the number on your license plate. We didn't have anything like vanity plates back then. Everybody had a standard license plate with a number on it. And depending on whether your license plate number ended in an odd number or an even number, that determined what days you could buy gas. I can remember when I was a little kid, gas station lines going out the parking lot of the gas station, down the street, around the corner, and down that street. People lined up to buy gas as far as you could see. So everybody starts to panic, worrying that we're going to run out of energy. So the U.S. government comes up with 4 solutions. Okay? So let's mention those. First of all, some of them have a picture here, some don't. But first of all, Congress establishes a national speed limit of 55 miles per hour. It's just a proven fact. The faster you drive, the more gas you burn. So if Congress figures, we're going to slow down Americans. So a national speed limit of 55 miles per hour. Before that, it had been up to each state to set its speed limits. And it is now. But right then, they said, nope, we're taking over. National speed limit at 55 miles per hour on all interstates. Okay? The second one, we begin construction of the Alaskan oil pipeline. Okay? It is discovered there's lots and lots and lots of oil on the north coast of Alaska. The problem is the Arctic Ocean is frozen most of the year. So we got to get the oil from the north coast of Alaska to the south coast of Alaska, where it's not frozen and we can put it on tankers. The way to do that is to build a pipeline. Right? Now, when this is proposed, environmentalists go nuts. Oh my God, you're going to destroy the environment and everything else. It doesn't. The Alaskan oil pipeline is one of the most successful integrations of industry and environment in U.S. history. Okay? There's never been an accident at the pipeline. Oil hasn't spilled everywhere. They said, oh my God, you're going to destroy the migratory patterns of Alaskan caribou. You know what they do? They raise the pipeline up higher, and the caribou walk under it. A brilliant plan. Alaskan oil pipeline, great thing. Still pumping oil out of the north coast of Alaska today. Number 3, no picture here, but we investigate and start to develop and research 2 new forms of energy: solar, meaning energy from the sun, and nuclear energy will start to be developed. Now, we've already talked about one of the problems with nuclear energy, the 3 Mile Island accident, but solar and nuclear energy will continue to be developed as alternatives to fossil fuels. And number 4, the last one, and this is probably one of the most lasting effects here, longest lasting effects, fuel-efficient cars. You see the Volkswagen. We start building cars that use less gas. Okay? The cars of the 50s and 60s were big V8 engine gas guzzlers. So people start driving fuel-efficient, compact cars, which is great. It's wonderful. It solves the gas problem. But it creates another problem. The other problem is that the big 3 auto companies, American auto companies, Ford, Chrysler, and GM, aren't the ones building them. Small, compact, fuel-efficient cars are being imported from Europe and from Asia, mainly Japan in Asia. Germany, Britain, Italy in Europe. But imports, great on gas mileage. People love them. The problem is, it's killing American industry. So we go back to the stagflation problem, unemployment. It's going to take a good 5-6 years before American auto companies are producing small, fuel-efficient cars. So it's a win-lose kind of thing here on this one. Okay. Now, eventually, OPEC will lift the embargo, but only after quadrupling the price of oil. They raised the price of oil to the United States 400%. And do you think oil companies in the United States are going to simply accept the loss in profits? No. They will pass on those price increases to the customer, and prices of gas will never be as cheap as they were in the 50s and 60s. Heating oil will go up. So the embargo comes to an end, but at a great cost to American consumers.